Thank you for joining us for the third session in the online marketing webinar series. Today's topic is Basics of Web Design, and we are very grateful to have Brett Wolf back with us this month from the Kentucky Center for Crop Diversification as today's instructor. I'm really looking forward to learning a lot in this session. We do want to recognize the support provided by the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture and the Southern Risk Management Education Center to make the series possible. To help report the impact of this webinar to these agencies, I will ask you to complete a very brief online evaluation at the end of the session. The link to that evaluation was included in the email with the link, and I'll also post it in the chat box for you at the end. We do have everyone's microphones turned off except for the speaker, and your video turned off, and we'll leave that way to help make the session go more easily. And we'd also like for you to type in your name and location in the chat box during the session so that we know who is here, and you can use the chat box at any time during the session to submit a question. It's really neat to see some familiar places, familiar names, and some new names, and also folks from Tennessee, Kentucky, and Michigan with us here today. So that's really exciting. We are recording the session, and we will plan to post the recording online in case you would like to view it again or share it with someone else. If there are no questions at this time, I will turn it over to Brett, and we will learn about basics of web design.
Well, thanks, Megan. As Megan said, my name is Brett Wolf, and I work up at the University of Kentucky Extension Service with an organization called the Center for Crop Diversification. And we focus on marketing and some production of specialty crops. This is a little bit more of a general presentation, so it won't be just specifically specialty crops. But a lot of the things that we've developed and that we work on are appropriate, much like the Center for Profitable Ag, they're appropriate for folks who are getting started, who are trying to gain some exposure to a topic. And so I hope you find this helpful and interesting. I'm really grateful to the Center for Profitable Agriculture for asking me to be a part of this. And so I'll launch right in. So we have about an hour today, and that should be enough time for me to teach you how to be a professional web developer, how to develop a unique and creative eye for design. I'll also include how to be a pro photographer, how to get 1 million website views, and then if we have time, we'll talk about where to find some wild money trees. So obviously, I'm kidding, we're not going to be able to cover all of that. But because the reality is that talent and professionalism take time and they take money sometimes. And if you don't have the time or interest to develop the skills that we're going to talk about today, then you're going to need to probably pay someone who did. The smartphone, blog, DIY, social media, YouTube era has been really good in a lot of ways, but it's also led to some undervaluation of professionals in a given field. So you have to decide whether some of the tasks we're talking about today are something that you are interested in pursuing, because fast, cheap, or professional, generally you can only pick two of those. So I'm just saying, if you don't have the patience or time to explore and develop the skills and make mistakes to do this, like with any of the other skills that you do in developing a business or farming or whatever it may be, then you may want to consider hiring out this portion, because professionals are professionals for a reason. The reality is that you already have your hands full in literal and figurative ways, and some of you may have recognized this from my previous presentation. So it's just a little bit of a caveat, a little bit of a the rest of what I'm going to talk about is, look how easy this is. This is really doable for you, but in order to get good at it and really develop some good content in a polished format, it's just going to take some time to do that. So with all those warnings out of the way, we can focus on some greener pastures here. And the good news, which is there's a number of technologies that have come along to make simple, quality web design accessible to a much wider range of users. This first one here, this alphabet soup, some of you may have seen before, is what you see is what you get. And that's just a term for this general style of web development platform where it simplifies and hides the string of codes that are making up an actual website. So you interact with it in a much more, what we would consider to be a much more intuitive way to someone who hasn't had exposure to web design before. And so all the programs I'm talking about today fit into this WYSIWYG thing. This includes things like the drag and drop feature. That's something that we take for granted a lot of times in our modern smartphone and computer environments, that we can drag and drop stuff and things just automatically end up there. Well, that technology over the last 5 or 10 years has moved over into this web design, and it's become, I mean, you'll see if you haven't played around before, you'll see it's shockingly easy to do that. A big part of a lot of websites and a lot of online presences in general has to do with great pictures. And so in addition to the easy photo editing that is now built into some of the programs I'm going to talk about today, you also have a camera in your pocket that vastly outperforms specialized cameras from 10 or 15 years ago, and it just so happens to be built into your phone. Even if you have a 3, 4, 5-year-old camera, it's plenty good to get really nice pictures for your website if you're going to try to do it yourself. Now, it's not going to be professional Ansel Adams photography that's going to win you any awards, but it can be a very, very high quality, good storytelling image that can really add to your website. With that being said, this tool, like any other tool, the smartphone, like any other tool, is only helpful if you use it. And I'll come back to this, but building a photo library is one of the best things that you can start doing today to improve your online marketing, website, prospects, etc. This is especially important if you have a business or elements of your product are seasonal. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in developing something, putting up a social media post and saying, man, it's December. I really wish I had a field-grown tomato with a setting sun in the background. But I can't do that because it's seasonal. So that little second, you're putting stuff on a tractor or you're loading up a truck or whatever it may be for your business. In that moment, just think, pull out your phone, snap a few shots. You may use them, you may not, but building that library really is, it's become so easy to do so that I almost run out of excuses now. This last one here, I'm not going to go really deep into this because this goes beyond the basics of web design. Talk about a couple of options that are available, but building e-commerce into a website is now easier than it has ever been, and it is really, really easy now. So I'm not going to go, like I said, not go too deep into that. There's a couple of variables you want to keep in mind in terms of pricing and fees as you're exploring those, but I won't go too far into that. The last one here that I have is if you're not familiar, this is the keyboard shortcut for undo. When you're trying to learn to do something online or with computers now, generally speaking, you'll be able to undo most of the mistakes that you may make. If you're not a person who's willing to try something and make a mistake and then figure out how to undo that mistake, again, this may not be the thing that you want to do. But a lot of the stuff that you can do, you can revert back, you can just directly undo it. Again, this all goes toward the good news that web design is now more within reach than it has been for a very, very long time. So the bottom line of this little intro here is that if you are sure that you actually need a website, which is a whole other conversation altogether, but if you are sure that you need a website and you're willing to put in some time to learn and make mistakes and take some pictures and develop content, you can certainly do it yourself. A quality website is well within your reach. I just have one more slide here, and then I'm going to actually jump out. I'm a proponent of showing rather than telling, but there's a couple of things I wanted to tell you before we jumped in. So this is just going to be a little bit of an overview of a couple of programs that are out there. There are tons of options now available for building websites. And I have these first three here are listed, are three of the very, very most popular. This is not an exhaustive list at all. There's tons and tons of them available, but these are probably three of the most popular. There's a couple others as well. But generally, I'd say that these are listed here in order of ease of use at the top. So Weebly is probably one of the easiest to use. And then Squarespace is one of them that you have a lot more control over the design, but you have a little bit, it's a little bit harder, a little bit of more of a learning curve to learn how to use it, in my experience. Wix is somewhere in the middle. All of these have tremendous, like really large user bases. They have really pretty good customer service and feedback, but all three of these are good for very different reasons. In most cases, the one people ask kind of which one should I choose? In most cases, you're going to be building a site on this program from a template. So if you've ever used PowerPoint or any other program like that, you know, you pick a slide template and it gives you the layout and then you fill in the content. It's a little more flexible, but that's kind of what you're going to do with a lot of these sites. And so one of the big deciding factors between these different sites is what kinds of templates they offer. And I'll show you some examples here in a second. But I would recommend going to at least each of these sites, if not some more, and create an account on each, which is free, and go in and explore the templates they have available, some of the options they have available, and that way you can get a sense of what you have to choose from before you decide on one particular program. And I'll mention here, if it's not, if you're not familiar, all of these, they are operated within a browser window. So whether you use Chrome or Firefox or whatever, Safari, you're going to operate this within that browser, just like Facebook or just like any other kind of thing. So you're going to log in there. There's no software, for the most part, there's no software that gets downloaded onto your computer, and you need to be online to be able to work on some of the stuff. So the template difference is one of the big ones between them. I have one more listed here, which is Square. And many of you are familiar with Square from their point of sale systems that use a tablet or a smartphone. It's the little white thing that plugs in, or they flip if somebody turns an iPad around, you sign it with your finger, chances are they're using Square. Square also, or SquareUp.com, also offers an online web store platform. If you want just a store, like if you're not actually looking for a website, if you're not looking for any of that, you're just looking for a web store, and especially if you're already using Square as your point of sale, I would really consider taking a look at that and seeing if that option is right for you. So the big caveat here, real quick, if you're not, I want to say this does not constitute an endorsement of any of the platforms, like tractors or computer systems or smartphones. There is a considerable amount of personal taste that goes into the decision on which one you like, and there's also strengths and weaknesses to each of these that you'll discover as you take a look a little bit closer. There are also some subtle pricing differences, though it's not massive. So I feel like I've done more caveats and warnings here than anything. So without further ado, I'm going to actually jump out of this PowerPoint, and we're going to go into a browser here. So I have decided for this tutorial, this conversation, to actually use Weebly. I've used all three of those, and they're all good in very different ways, or not in that they're all pretty similar in a lot of ways, and they have slight differences. But I've already created a couple of example partial websites, and I'll just take you through and show you. My goal here is not to straight up educate you on all of the basic tenets of web design. I know that's the name of the game there. But what I'm trying to do is empower you, and I'm trying to show you that this is within reach, but you're going to have to go in and play around because there's so much here that you're going to need to explore it for yourself. It's all user-friendly. It's all very searchable. Like you go on either the help databases on the different sites or on Google, and usually someone else has had the same problem that you've had. But anyway, so we're going to jump in here And let's go to this site. So I have a couple built here, CCD Farms and CCD Foods. We'll work on CCD Farms for now. So to get to this stage, basically all I had to do was put in an email address and a password, and created a password. And it created this account for me, and then I went and created a site. We actually have a video on that process recorded. If anybody's interested in that, we can forward it along, but it is pretty straightforward, and they're trying to guide you through. So I've very minimally built a few things. Let's go ahead and here into the editor and take a look. So this is where you're going to do your developing of the site itself. This is built off of a template, which I'll talk about in a second, but just roughly over here are these various different modules that you can just drop in, and I'll show you the drag and drop thing here in a second. It's like, let's say that this, I wanted to actually add a title above this. I just grabbed the title, I dragged it, and I dropped it. And now I can edit it however I want. I can move it over to the center, can do all this stuff. If I decide, I don't really like that, there's an X here. Click that. I'm sure, yeah, it even asks me, are you sure that you want to do this? And I say, yes, please delete that. Okay, so all of these modules over here are drag and drop, and I'll show you a little bit more about them here in a second. Up here across the top, you can see these different menu items. So we have pages here. This is all the different pages we have available on the site. You can see I have the different theme options. So if I want to go in here, and this is again the layout of my PowerPoint slide, so to speak. So if I selected a different one of these, it would automatically change and reformat the different aspects of my site. So you can see under the business section here, here's some of the options we have from Weebly. So I'll just go ahead and show you on Wix, for instance. These are the templates that are available from Wix. And you can see they have different ways of navigating them, different styles if you wanted an online store or whatever it may be. So this is what I mean by logging into each place and just taking a look at what the templates look like. So let's go back here real quick. Another item to be aware of here is in the builder. We have this, and in a lot of the different builders, we have this option to view what does this site look like on desktop and what does this site look like on mobile. Everyone, I'm sure, is familiar with the idea that so many people are navigating to our sites on a mobile platform. And so this is to see, okay, what is this actually? That looks kind of dark. It's kind of hard to see because of the placement there. This works well. And so this is just a way to view the settings and how they apply to a mobile platform versus a desktop platform. Now, rather than just doing this here, another thing that I like to do is to have the builder open in one tab and then have the actual website as we're viewing it, as a viewer would see it, open in another tab. So that way, if I make a change, like let's say I don't like that as all caps, I want to change that here to this. Now if I hit publish, which is kind of making my changes public to everybody, and see it's still all uppercase, but if I refresh this, watch that farms, it's now changed. So I can get this live view as I'm editing that people are actually going to see, because this has a tendency to skew it. Now, do not, please do not feel overwhelmed by the interface, because it's actually simpler than it looks. The other thing is, if you decide that you like a Wix template better, you might end up going with Wix instead, and all of this is going to look slightly different, though the vast majority of the functionality is going to be the same. Okay, did I see maybe possibly a question came in or a comment? Oh, just some more introductions. Great, awesome. So let me see your website. The more that you, so I've played around with this quite a lot. So the more that you explore how it works, the quicker you'll be. It took me a long time because I click here and then I can't delete this, and then I click out, and it you have to like kind of hover in order to, those kinds of little wonky aspects of the different builders. You'll just get used to that, and the more that you play around with it, the better off you'll be. So does anybody have any quick questions on the builder itself or the interface or anything like that? You can see you have image, you have a whole lot of other things that are available. If you had a flash-based thing that you wanted to drop in, social icons. And again, what is that? I wonder what that is. Oh, let's take it and drop it in and see what it looks like. Oh, okay. And then you can link this to your different social media platforms. So I don't think I actually want that, so I'm going to get rid of it. Okay. So I didn't see anything come in, so I'll just keep moving here. So now, rather than just talking about the particularities of Weebly, because you may go for a different tool, let's talk about a couple of principles that I think are important as you get started. I'm actually going to move over to the live view here. The first principle that I would think about is making sure that your website ties in to all the other marketing that you're doing. And I think that it should do this in as quick and obvious a way as possible. And so what we have here in front of us is a very cute puppy that has very little to do with anything that my faux business here, CCD Farms, even does. We sell all fresh fruits and vegetables. So why is there a puppy here? Now, this is an extreme example, but it's a great picture. It's very captivating. People like it. But if I just open this up, CCD Farms, I'm guessing maybe that's a dog breeder. Maybe that's, I don't know what. Maybe it's a shelter, or I'm not in the thought process of, oh, this is fresh fruits and vegetables. So an alternative homepage, and you can see further down, I didn't even change some of this stuff from the template, but an alternative homepage would be something like this. So as soon as we land, we can immediately see, okay, that looks like corn in this picture. I can see the name nice and clear. Okay, here's a logo, welcome. And then before I move any further, I can see, okay, you sell this stuff directly. So in that moment, this has very quickly tied in with the other things that I'm trying to do. Because what I'm trying to do is sell more fruits and vegetables, recruit more customers, let people know that I'm here. And this is, I think, achieving that. One a little bit subtler point about this would be as you're choosing your template, you may want to choose something that you feel like fits your brand or your mission more, a little bit better. The trend has been toward these very sleek, image-driven, fairly minimalistic structures in a lot of the themes. But if you look through, I mentioned, each of the different ones has a couple other ones would be WordPress or Blogspot. They have their own dynamic. So you might go and just take a look. If you don't find one that fits what you're going for, then just think about maybe going for a different template. So choosing a template based on fitting with the rest of your marketing materials. If you want it to be exactly perfectly dialed into some logo, marketing material, color, everything else that you have already, you can probably get close with a builder like this, but you might want to talk to an actual professional web designer because they can build you something much, much more custom. Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? So as if a user is still interested, they see this and they're like, oh, cool, I live in Western Kentucky, or I live in Northwestern Tennessee. Cool, as I keep scrolling, I can learn some more. And this is prime real estate for the things that matter the most. So a lot of people think that the family, and these are all from a free open source photo sharing thing called Pexels, but our family is great. Look how amazing. Look at the lighting. Look how happy we are. Our family is amazing. Our team of 3 works to put food on our table and yours. if this is important to your brand, it needs some real estate front and center on your site. Same way here. And I think this is one where people sometimes forget to share this message of where to buy. You do want to share a lot of content about who you are and what you do, but don't forget to let people know how they can support you in as easy and as painless a way as possible. So another principle that I think is important is to think about starting simple and only adding necessary complexity. So an example on this here, that this applies to both within a page and across the whole site. So for like this page here, this is the caveat, this isn't real. This is pretty simple. The message is clear. There's not an overwhelming amount of information, but there's enough information that the page deserves to stand alone and exist. There's other pages you'll see, and I don't have any on here right now, but they're very, very busy, and it can just be a little bit overwhelming. A problem I think we do have here is you can see we already have all these tabs, and we have these tabs too. And I just think, are each of these accomplishing something? You can see in this case, I don't even think I've done anything to this. And if there is a page on my site that's just sitting there blank, it's distracting from the central message that I'm trying to get out. So what I would do in this case, I'll show you actually in the editor how easy this is. So this again is my live view. So I'm going to go back over to my builder, and I'm going to go up to pages, which is what I'm looking at. And I think I'm never going to use for kids. When I first built the site, I thought maybe it was something that I could use. I think I'm actually just going to delete for kids, get rid of it altogether. Now these other three here, or these other two here, I'm not sure if I'm ready to pull the plug on them, but I definitely don't want them cluttering up my navigation bar, my menu. So I'm going to click hide in navigation. And I'm going to go back, and I also don't want customers here. I think I want to put that hide in navigation too. Now, even if I go here and I refresh this, nothing will have changed. You can still see that. That's because back here, all my changes are saved, but I haven't hit publish yet. Different platforms will approach that differently, but it's just something to think about. If I go back here and I try to refresh for kids, it's going to tell me that that page doesn't exist. And that's because I deleted it. So if we go back here, you can see now my menu bar is much cleaner. That was very simple and very quick. And since this is so bad, I'm going to hide it too. Go to my pages, and this one here, I want to hide that from navigation. And then I also want to go to here, and since it's the only home now, I'm just going to delete that. So that way it shows up nice and clean. And I'm going to publish it because I want everybody to see that. And I'm going to refresh. Well, and you can see now this isn't showing. It shows up as home. It's not. And we could address that other thing that just happened. But so the point here is it was very easy to strip this down and make this look very straightforward and polished and only show the things that I'm interested in showing. I wouldn't clutter it up unless there's a reason to. That's all I'm saying here. More content is not necessarily better. A nice, curated, clean message delivered artfully as possible is what it's all about. Anybody have any questions so far about that? So you can see here on my About page, I don't have anything yet. It's just blank. It's just sitting here. And I left it that way so we could just really quickly build this together. So back in my builder here, I can go to, I want to build, and I want to go to my About page. And you can see it's empty, and it actually is telling me, please, please put something in here. This looks terrible. So I'm going to I think that I probably want a title. And I want that to say our team. And I want that to be centered. And I definitely want a picture. So I'm going to drop that in. You can see that blue, in this builder, that blue line kind of shows you where it's going to go. And I want some text to go along with the picture, I think. And so as I drag this around, you can see the blue. This is one of the things about the Weebly builder that's a little wonky. I'm going to drop it in and move it. All right, now we've got an image next to, and you saw I messed something up, so I deleted it. No big deal. And so you could see how quickly I built that little section here. Now you can see these are just placeholders. This is where something is going to go. So now this brings me to another point, which is you want to, if the more that you can pull together content that's going to go into these placeholders ahead of time, the more smoothly your building process is going to go. So what I mean by that is if I build this and then I realize I don't have a picture of myself anywhere, I'm going to have to go out and either snap a selfie or I'm going to have to find somebody to take a picture. And I'm now going to have to leave the website building, switch tasks, lose efficiency, lose focus, something else, one of the kids gets sick or the dog is missing or something happens. And now I suddenly have less of a chance to finish this task that I have set out in front of me. So the more that you can build and have the content, whether that includes a photo library or whether that includes text, is that will make things a lot easier for me. So I just so happen to have this pulled together out here. So here I have this. This is how I would one way, and one very simple way to do this is to do this ahead of time before you start building, is to give yourself an outline. And this is, so here's my home page. Here's my about page. If we go back over here real quick, you can see it's just my same home, about, and contact. And so in that builder, in that outline, I have the blue things are photos that I need. And the green things is copy that I need. So copy is just this term in marketing and in journalism and other places too, where it's the written content that goes into some sort of a laid out web interface or a publication or whatever. So you have images, you have kind of the graphic design components, and then the copy. And copy is can be notoriously boring and time consuming to make, just to do interesting, good copy. So if you can do that when you're feeling inspired and have it there available to you, suddenly what was me thinking, what do I do? Brett is, I'm thinking of, well, no, actually back when I was feeling inspired, I went ahead and sketched this out. I can just copy this and paste it right in. Get rid of this. Boom. Now, assuming that I don't have to go out and snap a picture, I have a headshot here. This goofy guy. Oh, shoot, no. So in Weebly, we have to click here and click upload an image, and then we drag this in. You can see I'm dragging and dropping from my desktop into the browser. And whoa, that is way bigger than anyone wants to see that face. So I can actually grab, and this is just a quirk of this program. I can grab that and resize it, and boom. And let's say I have more members of my team. I want to go back here and I want to drop this down here. And now I can add more and more photos as I go and build pretty quickly. But again, the more content that I have already put together and the more organized that I am about the different various aspects that are going to go into my website, the smoother everything is going to go for me. Anybody have, if you have questions, feel free to leave them in the chat. So the name of the game here is to stay organized, and that way once you start developing, you'll be able to hopefully get to a stopping point, a finished point. So back on the pages, again, I mentioned a second ago, let's just say I have this customers page, and it's hidden right now. But let's say I do some work on it. I can keep it in the background by clicking hide in navigation, and I can work on it, I can work on it, I can work on it. And then eventually I can unhide it, bring it back onto my website, as you can see up here, it came back on. But if maybe I take it back down, maybe it's a seasonal page, those are kinds of things where you don't have to have everything that you've worked on all laid out at once. If I can prevent one thing from this, it would be having a bunch of pages that say in development, content coming soon. And I always wonder, how long has it been in development? If it's been in development since May of 2017, then maybe you should just hide that. Do the equivalent of throwing the tablecloth over it. So that's just another little tidbit there. Anybody have any questions? And I'll mention, and Megan's going to talk about it at the end, but there is a photography class in this series coming up that somebody else is teaching. I think it's in 2 months maybe. So that's something, again, you'll get the dates on that at the end of the presentation here, but it's just something that to keep on your radar. A lot of the auto settings on phones right now are so smooth that once you learn a couple of principles of composition and other things, you can really take some really nice pictures shockingly easily. So I'm not going to go super detailed on the costs of each of the options that are available, but I will say each of them has this available. And if you just Google Weebly pricing, Wix pricing, Squarespace pricing, Blogspot pricing, WordPress pricing, they'll give you these little matrices. So it shows you all the different things that it does and doesn't have. And if you get this, then you get these upgrades. And but you can see generally these are pretty darn affordable. If you've talked to somebody or you've thought that web development or a website was going to cost you thousands of dollars every year or something like that, that's generally not the case. I will say one thing to pay attention to as you're thinking about this is, are you using this as a personal, you're just trying to tell the farm or the business's story, or are you going to actually use it for some e-commerce? So if you're going to use it for e-commerce, pay attention to some of these, if you go down here, these e-commerce options. Just something to be aware of. The other thing, they do the thing that everybody else does. It's $8 a month if you pay it annually, but if you choose to pay it per month, it's more than that or something like that. Wix, again, just to give everybody a little bit of screen time, they have different options. You can peruse this. There are a handful of sites online that will have these side-by-side comparisons. I think those can be helpful. The one caveat to be aware of is that some of those may have received money from one or more of those platforms in order to be featured. So Wix says, I'm not saying that, company A says, I'll give you $100 if you include us in your comparison. Does that affect the bias of the people rating it? I don't know, maybe. So here's simple pricing stuff. This is for Squarespace. And another thing just to be aware of, if you notice on here, there is no free option for Squarespace. So you have 2 weeks to work on a free site and I think have it live. And then after that, you either have to pay or it gets taken offline. Like you still work on it and stuff, but you won't be able to show it to anybody. Compare that with Weebly and Wix. I thought Wix used to have a free. I thought they did. Oh, well. Well, you can check it, but Weebly has this free one. The caveat of that, I feel like I'm saying that a lot today, is if you notice up here in the web address, Weebly is featured in the web address. If I pay for one of the premium packages, I have the option, assuming that this address is available, of getting rid of that, and that becomes my domain. So that's the other thing is you can see this giant powered by Weebly thing down here because they're going to use your site as an advertisement until you pay them not to. So that's just something to be aware of in a lot of different sites. I know WordPress and Blogspot both have this option where you can have the name included there. That may be a good starting point. You can see if it's something that works for you, or if it's worth it to you, you can jump straight in and have your name as the web address. Had a great question from Christopher Robbins. He said, I assume he said, if you already own a domain name, can you bring it to any of these platforms? The answer is yes, absolutely yes. This is one of those things that it's a little bit beyond the basics, but it is something that's important for people who've done this before. So the domain name is just that you own the rights to kind of where this goes on the internet. You pay for the rights to do that. Within each of these, you have the option of getting the domain they'll sell it to you all in one very easy package. Like many other consumer goods, the bundling is usually way more convenient, but it's maybe a little bit more expensive. Alternatively, if you've already built a website in the past, or you had someone build a website and it's really expensive or it's not doing what you need or whatever, and you're considering changing over to one of these things, you don't want to give up, if it was CCD MFA, you don't want to give up ccdmfa.com just to change over. And so what you'll end up doing is you'll end up working with whoever it is you acquired that domain, you acquired that address from initially, and there's all kinds of tutorials and help, and they can help you do that. Each of these builders will help you do that. You just have to establish for them that you actually own it, and you have to transfer it over and all that kind of stuff. And it's another just nuance to this where you are paying. You kind of have to pay for two things, and it's on an ongoing basis. One is the service of the website itself, to build it, all of this polished stuff, to use it on an to have that site available from through Weebly's development platform. But then the other thing that you have to pay for is the domain name, whether you get that through Weebly or through some other. So the answer to your question, long way around, you can tell long-winded, is yes, you can use a domain name that you already have on these platforms. Anybody have any other questions about that right now? I'm going to go back into the PowerPoint for a second. So this is a little bit of a recap of some of the principles that we talked through in the actual browser, and in the builder, I mean. And so that is just, think of it as an extension of the rest of your branding. So make sure that your message is clear, make sure you get to the point, make sure it's the pages are serving a purpose to help your marketing. That's one. Start simple and only add necessary complexity. This is, this might be the most common thing, is for people to just kind of brainstorm and throw everything out there. And the brainstorming process is great because I think it gives you lots of good ideas, but you don't need to translate your brainstorm up onto a website. A question that I ask people a lot, and sometimes they are all excited to build one and they don't want me to shoot them down or burst their balloon, is, do you really need a website? And what I mean by this is that so Facebook is a platform that is available. It's something that allows you to be social. It's even more user-friendly and quick than a website is. They do some of what they call search engine optimization, which just means how likely are you to show up in a search engine such as Google or Yahoo or whatever when someone looks for you. How likely is that? So Facebook does some of that search engine optimization for you. There are some businesses that have both a Facebook page and a website, and the Facebook page actually shows up first in the search results just because of that. That being said, not everyone uses Facebook. Some people aren't comfortable with Facebook for one reason or another. So I think it's just important, if you were evaluating, should I buy an implement for my tractor, or should I buy a new piece of processing equipment for the commercial kitchen that I work in, you would say, do I really need this? How much is it going to improve anything that I'm doing? You don't get a chisel plow, or you don't get some kind of specialty pressure canner or something, just because you think that it's something that you should do. You get it because it's a tool, and you have to think about this in the same way. So if you evaluate it and you think, yes, I would like the tool, I think it would help me, I think it would help improve the professionalism of my brand, it would give me a place to send potential buyers or vendors or whatever, absolutely go for it. Another one here, and I cannot emphasize this enough for any of your online or even print marketing, is to build that photo library. Spaces like Pexels that I mentioned that offer like free downloadable high quality photos are great. The problem is that picture that I had of the people there's one person who has an apple and they're handing it over to the other person on the website that I had built there at the market. I've seen that in like 15 different flyers and different websites and everything else since I did it. And I'm not judging people who did. I've used that picture before and I'm still using it here. You can guarantee that if you take a picture of your farm, that is the only one that's the only picture like that that's gonna exist. And so really trying your best to build that photo library, whether that be with your smartphone or whatever, whether maybe you get into digital photography or something, is a really good step that is usually free, and you can start doing it. You can start doing it today. And the last one here is just that idea with the outline and having the pictures and everything ready, is that the more prepared you have the content, the faster you're going to be, the sooner you can move on to some other aspect of supporting your business or supporting your farm or whatever. But you're also, if you decide to go ahead and go with one of the paid plans, you won't have a period of time where you are paying for the service without fully utilizing it because you haven't had the time. So if you get your content cards in order, get your content ducks in a row, or whatever the metaphor is, if you get all that ready and then you launch into the website building, you're going to just be much, much more efficient and save time and ultimately some money too. So I said that I would touch on e-commerce, and I'm not going to go too deeply into this. I mentioned the Square store. Square as an app and as a program actually has built-in an option to do built-in integration, I think, in all three of those platforms that I mentioned, Wix and Weebly and Squarespace, meaning that you can take, you have your Square reader and you go to the farmer's market or whatever, and somebody swipes their card and you accept that payment. and somebody orders some jams or jellies from you online, process that payment, I know that you can integrate those and you can get those to go to the same place. At the same time, and I hope that made sense. If it didn't, don't worry about it. But at the same time, each of these has its own e-commerce platform that you can use. And when I say e-commerce, I just mean buying stuff online, that you have a web store and people can drag stuff and put it in their cart or learn more about it or whatever it may be, pay for it with a credit card. They have that stuff built in. So you have the option of the integrated, which is just built in, like I just said, or if you have a third-party app that you really like, you can have that be integrated. You can add that into any of these websites also. Again, it's getting beyond the level of basic, so I'm not going to go much further. But a couple things to pay attention to. How will this, if you do a point of sale, if you have either a brick and mortar or you have a market stand or you go to craft fairs and sell stuff or whatever, will the online sales be easy and workable to integrate into your existing point of sale purchase system? You don't want to add complexity there. Look at the different plan, the levels, premium and ultra premium and platinum and gold, whatever the different levels are. Some of them, if they have a web store component, they'll say you can list up to 10 items at a time, or you can list unlimited items at a time. There's also things on how many transactions can you process. Sometimes they'll give you a certain number of free transactions or a certain number of free transaction dollars. That's something to think about. And then the last one here, and this is where it can sometimes get a little, you have to do some digging to really figure it out. But do they charge you a monthly fee to have a web store or a website or whatever? Or do they charge you just on a per transaction fee? So I was looking yesterday, and as far as I can tell, the Square online web store does not have any monthly fee. It just has a per transaction fee of, I think, 2.9%. So if you integrate, and this is one that I still haven't found a satisfactory answer to for all of the platforms, but if you integrate Square into one of these web builders like Weebly, do you have to pay both of them a fee? I think in some cases you might, and in some cases you don't. But that's beyond the scope of the basics here, but it's just something to keep in mind. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I hope, again, my hope here was, and if I overwhelmed you, then I completely went against anything that I was trying to do. My hope is that you can see that this is within reach for you. It's going to take some time and take some energy and take some thought, but it is something that you can achieve. It's within reach. So if you have questions or anything that you can follow up with me, Megan can get you my email address. But without any other questions right now, I'll turn it back over to Megan.
Brett, thank you so much. That was very informative, and I look forward to digging into some of those resources some more. If you think of any questions as we're going through just these last few slides, please add those into the chat box. We do have some more upcoming topics. Brett is generously coming back once again to speak to us about understanding and using analytics. That will be next month in September. In October, we will be having David Yates from UT Extension talking about using Adobe Spark to market your business. And Doug Edlin from our communications department at the Institute of Agriculture will be with us in November talking about photography tips for websites and social media. So really looking forward to all of these sessions. Will you change to the next slide, please?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. We're kind of going back and forth here. Brett's changing the slides for me. So getting ready to promote some workshops about using Facebook for beginners for marketing your business. And we'll be working on putting that material together and offering it in November and December. These will be hands-on workshop, either using your device or a tablet that we will have to make available for folks who don't know much about Facebook or using Facebook for a business page and how to market your business that way. So there'll be all-day workshops. We'll really be looking forward to those as well. And one thing I do want to ask you to do is to jot down a goal or two from today's session, something that you would like to look into or something that you would like to implement for your business. Brett gave some really great information, and we want you to use it to the very best of your ability. And finally, we really do need your feedback as we report to the granting agency who made this possible. So I've included the link to the webinar evaluation. It is 3 or 4 questions that would be really helpful if you answered for us. And it'll help me as we plan for webinar sessions for January through June of next year. I'll be looking at what you need or would like as far as topics and speakers for that time period. So your input and feedback is really valuable to us there. We appreciate all of you joining us, and we really appreciate Brett for all of his hard work and for his presentation today. And we look forward to seeing you all next time.